Well, every day, ordinary people find themselves in some extraordinary situations, often thrown into the media spotlight.
The experience of those who've become household names overnight and how it's affected them is the subject of a new podcast. It's called Accidental Celebrity. Here's a snippet of James Scott, who found himself at the centre of a media circus after surviving 43 days alone in the freezing Himalayas back in 1992.
It just got so out of hand. It got so out of hand so quickly. The media had bombarded the family and now they're bombarding Parton Hospital. This is a third world hospital. The phone lines are jammed. The switchboard were jammed. Emergency calls couldn't come in. And then journalists had paid staff to try and steal my medical records. To get them out, they tried to climb ladders outside to try and take photos of me through the windows.
Fiona Reynolds is the host of Accidental Celebrity. She joins us now from Launceston. Hey, Fiona, good morning. And full disclosure, Fiona's a former colleague of ours. Great to see you back on our TV screens. How are you going?
Good morning, Michael. Good morning, Lisa.
Hey, the obvious question is, people like James Scott and Stuart Diver, Lindsay Chamberlain have spoken out so often over the years. How did you go about convincing them to open up to you in such the candid way they all have?
I embarked on an academic study into what it was like for ordinary people who survived extraordinary experiences, what it was like to then become a celebrity. And when I approached them for that, they all agreed based on the fact that they said they hadn't been asked these questions before, that everybody was fully aware of their story, the event that they'd been swept up in, but nobody had asked them what the media practices were like, how that impacted on their lives, and then the ensuing public attention that they faced.
And I want to go through...
They were keen to let people know.
Absolutely, and gee, they have in your podcast episodes. I want to go through some of the cases that you bring to light. James Scott, let's go back to him. Gee, that's amazing, him talking about the situation in the hospital. He also opened up to you that at the start, looking back, he just wished he died on the Himalayas as opposed to go through the ordeal that he did.
James was very frank, as were all of the others in the series. They expressed that overnight they became household names and they could never have been prepared for that. For James, he faced great difficulties in his personal health, and then the media pursuit, and then speculation about whether he'd actually staged a hoax. So he was too unwell to speak for about 2 weeks. And in that period of time, while everybody was waiting to hear from the Miracle Iceman, there was speculation that maybe he hadn't really survived 43 days alone. And that hurt. That hurt a lot.
Just amazing. Hey, let's talk now about Thredbo. A great interest to me because I recall both of us as ABC journalists spending freezing 24-hour days covering this dreadful landslide back in 1997. 18 people died. Of course, Stuart Diver survived after 65 hours under the rubble. And gee, he is quite open, isn't he, to you about how he felt no compunction about hiring people to help him navigate his way through the media circus.
That's right, and often in the media it's reported that they were out to make money out of this story. They hired an agent, of course the agent has to be paid, so they must be going to try and profit from their experience. I can assure you that none of them profited from their experience. In the case of James Scott, the money went into paying $50,000 of rescue fees, expenses that his family faced. Lindsay Chamberlain-Creighton's never been able to get a job as a result of being such a high-profile figure. And in the case of Stuart Diver, he certainly found that the media pursuit was so intense that he had to try to protect his privacy and give himself some space. It wasn't letting up, and so all of those who hired an agent say that the reason was to stop the hounding hordes and to be able to put some control and some protection around their personal space until they were ready to talk. And in some cases, embarking on an exclusive interview gives them the ability to do that. It's a one-on-one situation, not a mass, media environment, which they were either ill-prepared for or seriously unwell and not physically able to do it.
Lindsay Chamberlain-Creighton, let's go back to her. She is very candid with you. She still unfairly polarises so many people despite being comprehensively cleared the charges of murdering her daughter, Azaria. And she tells you, I mean, simple things like going to the supermarket, applying for a job, she can't do because she is a nationally known face.
That's right. And in the case of Lindy, she thinks that she's perhaps not going to be recognised sometimes because these people still think of themselves as ordinary people. But she'll be in the doctor's surgery and she'll look and there's a magazine and her face is in it. And so she tries to bury it under a pile of other magazines so that people don't necessarily make the connection. In all of the cases, they don't necessarily expect to be recognised, but when they are, they just try to greet that with grace. And it's a feeling then, it becomes a feeling once they're in the public space, that they're under scrutiny all the time.
Yeah.
And that means they get concerned about, what if I trip up? What if I make a mistake? Somebody's going to either capture that on a phone or tell other people about it. So Bruce and Denise Morecambe, whose son Daniel was abducted and murdered, they sometimes would like to go to the supermarket and probably, like myself and many others, prefer to sort of dump your shopping trolley maybe beside your car rather than putting it back in the bay if you're feeling a bit lazy, but they have to go and take it back because somebody will say, that was the Morecambes.
Hey, congratulations, Fiona. As we mentioned earlier, this podcast series jumped to #2 within days of coming out. See, decades in journalism, you make a podcast and you're instantly a star.
I don't know about that. My whole purpose in doing this was really to ensure that these people had a voice.
Yeah.
Once, I'd done the study and I found their experiences were so raw and needed to be told. This is pretty rare insights. We all think we know the story, but we don't know this side of it. And I felt, as they did, that people should hear this more broadly, understand a bit more about media practices and understand what it's like to be in the public eye, what that life is like for somebody who really still feels that they're an ordinary person. And so I'm pleased that that audiences are responding to that, and we're getting some pretty good feedback. So if it does nothing else but enlighten people on the lives of somebody else, and we gain a bit better understanding about their experiences, then that's a great outcome.
Yeah, I can highly recommend it, Fiona. I mean, I thought I knew everything about the likes of Stuart Diver, about Lindy, about the Morecambes, and I've learnt new things. So for that, I thank you, and again, congratulations for the success of the podcast.
Thank you, Michael.
You can find Accidental Celebrity at wherever you get your podcast from.